if you look at the structure of the NFL today, it's about one-upmanship. You look at the quarterbacks getting their deals. Joe Flacco got his deal, and we based it off of, he felt like he was the best quarterback now because of what he did, so he based it off of what Drew Brees got. And then you look at Aaron Rodgers and Tony Romo to follow. So that's what the contracts these days are about. And also these kids coming in, even when you see them sign on signing day, what do they say? I'm going to go to LSU. I'm going to go to Alabama for 3 years. Yeah. And then I'm going to leave and go to the NFL. So the culture we have now is about money. They want to make money. And I would be honest, the Steelers were a team that kept that away from the organization as long as possible. If you look at some of the deals that Joey Porter took when he was playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Alan Faneca, even the deals that Troy Polamalu has taken, never hitting the market, extending his contracts with years left. And we don't have those type of people in the organization anymore because I don't think those type of people come into the draft. They don't see it as that. Guys are seeing it as, hey, I want to play and make as much money as I possibly can. And I would tend to think that Mr. Green is talking more about the Mike Wallace situation. You know, you've had Hines Ward, who was probably never paid according to his play on the field. He was paid well. You know, he was paid well. But now we have guys that say, you know what, I'm just not comfortable living in this guy's neighborhood. I want his house, or I want my house to be bigger. And that is what the league has turned into.
All right. Stephen A.
What's up, Ryan? Good to see you, bro.
What's up, Stephen A?
Let me say this. Let me say this. Nothing but profound respect for you. Call him Mr. Green. I call him Mean Joe. He'll always be Mean Joe Green to me. 4-time Super Bowl champion, legit, no doubt. But Skip, Ryan, here's my problem. His statement, once again, was not wrong. Just incomplete. See, you can't throw stuff out there and then stop right there. Because it seems as if he's putting the onus on the players. Certainly there are players, the one-upmanship that he alluded to. Well, this dude is making this money. Well, I want to make that money. Because clearly the market allows for me to make this money, so I should make it. Well, this is a league we're talking about that can cut you at the drop of a hat. They can sit there and sign you to a quote-unquote guaranteed deal, can turn around, waive you, cut you, ask you to restructure, take a pay cut. Ryan, feel free to interrupt me when I'm wrong.
Nah, you
okay?
speaking truth.
Because last time I checked, they can do all of that. Well, if you're Mean Joe Green, how do you make a statement like that and leave those facts out? How do you do that? I can't knock the players for that, Skip, Ryan. I can't do it because that one-upmanship, if you're talking about it being associated with something as trivial as I want a better house, I want a better car, you have a point. But we're talking about what the market will allow, but more importantly, a market that is dictated by the NFL itself. You have executives that sit there and say, well, we're going to pay you this because last year this person in this slot got that. And they do it that way. Or they might sit there and say, well, this dude is worth it because this is what he brings to the table. Well, if you know that's what you're doing, then what's the justification for denying you the monetary benefits you've accorded to somebody else? You can't sit there and just look at the players who are out there busting their tail, working hard, training, getting on their grind, risking their health for years and years to come beyond the sport of football to play this game and knock them for making as much money as they possibly can make when you use every excuse under the sun to minimize their marketability, because we're talking about a league with a hard cap, and we're talking about a 53-man roster fitting under whether it's a 123, 127, $129 million salary cap. It's a hard cap. It's a number that can't be exceeded. You're trying to squeeze money under that, so all you're doing is cutting corners and doing everything you can to shave your financial obligations. The player is doing the opposite because he's trying to get his in the short window that he has an opportunity to. So I understand Mean Joe Green. I appreciate his comments. It's not factually incorrect, but it is factually incomplete. And it's sad to me that a former player would be incomplete in giving that kind of explanation.
I'm with you, Stephen A. And
I am old enough that I covered pro football in the 70s. I covered those Cowboys Steelers Super Bowls in the 70s, and I have the utmost respect for Mr. Green. But a part of me, when I first read these remarks, thought, comes off as grumpy old man talk, because it's not today's reality. And in some ways, it wasn't 1970s reality, because on teams other than Pittsburgh, they were all one-up in each other. I covered the Los Angeles Rams in the 70s. Yeah, they were all fighting over, I want as much as he got this and I want that. The Steelers, and you made a great point, sort of kept the players at bay longer than any other team did, all the way up to Mike Wallace in the present, really. So this is a new world for Steeler Nation. And what this brings us around to the bottom line. Do you sense some decay in the Steeler way? Will this start to will you fray a little bit over this as a collective unit because you're being pulled apart because of this one-upsmanship?
Well, I think the thing is, it's not that it's pulled apart in the locker room because of the one-upsmanship. I think we have to come out and talk about it so much. I mean, Emmanuel's been here, and Antonio, and Antonio Brown, it is. And, they had the whole thing with Lamar Woodley early in the offseason. And so we've had to talk about so many different things, whether it be fracture in the locker room or guys coming out anonymously and saying things about different players. So I think that could pull you apart. But what's happened is I've received numerous texts. Antonio Brown, when I was texting my new number, I was like, look, Tony, this is my new number. The first thing he said is, look, man, we're going to grind. We're going to work this year. Okay. None of the things that we thought were going on last year are going to go on. Ben called me during the offseason and said, hey, I came out and made a statement that there was no fracture in the locker room because there is none. He's like, now we have it's 2013. We're starting this over. Whatever happened last year happened. Let's move on. And I think that's the focus we all have approached this with. And also, it's kind of banded us together. For years, we were talked about as, look, this is a brotherhood. This is a family. They're always going to be in the hunt for the Super Bowl. They're always going to be in the hunt to win the AFC North. And it's different now. It's finally a mentality externally about the Pittsburgh Steelers that, look, there's struggle. Look, there's problems in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
And so for us, what it's done, Troy, as soon as the season over, get into training. Lamar, as soon as the season over, get into training. Guys that say, look here, if this is what they're going to say about us outside of this locker room, all we have to count on is what we do inside of this locker room, what we do on the grass. And so that's the mentality that we've taken, and I think it's going to be a plus for us.
Stephen A., you want to add?
Well, I think he's absolutely right, because I must admit to you, when I listen to what me and Joe Green has said, I'll tell you something that was very, very disconcerting to me. You got a guy like Mike Tomlin, a man that I consider to be a great coach. And we don't need to sit there and elaborate extensively on the trials and tribulations and the plight of the African-American coach, because we talked about it yesterday, and we've seen it throughout history. To have a plethora of players on your roster that are not sensitive to his plight, that can allow some stuff to ooze out of their locker room, where there's infighting, where there's bickering, where there's talking behind somebody's back, without really recognizing what kind of a reflection that is going to be on him. That really was very, very concerning to me, because not trying to make people uncomfortable, but let's be clear about something here. You got coaches. You got to know your X's and O's. Skip, you got to know what you're doing. But by and large, you speak to any black coach out there, you know what they'll tell you? We're also held accountable as to whether or not we're leaders of young men. And the second that comes across as being something in question, they are in peril. So I'm upset at the Steelers as players. I'm talking about the few, not all of y'all, but the few who are running their mouths, that were not sensitive to the kind of situation this puts Coach Mike Tomlin in. He does not deserve that. He deserves better from the players inside that locker room.
You want to respond?
Yeah, definitely on that. I understand that. And, I've actually come out and talked about the plight of African-American coaches on this show. Sure. And I understand that they're under a microscope differently than other coaches in the NFL. But the one thing we know is if anybody's equipped to handle this situation, it's Coach Tomlin, because of the way he's handled us, the way he's allowed us to be men. You talk about me, I get to come on shows and do ESPN shows and say whatever I want. Yeah. In a lot of places, that's not allowed. So for me, I owe him. To me, I feel like, okay, you've allowed me to flourish in your system, and I've become the Ryan Clark that people know, because I had a coach who won't handcuff me and who will allow me to play. And also on the other side of that, when we kept coming at Roger Goodell, when James and I would say things about being hit, Coach Tomlin brought me into the office and say, look, I wanted to have a situation or atmosphere where you guys could be men. He's like, but if I didn't bring you in and say, hey, Ryan, we have to stop throwing rocks at this tank and stop putting, first of all, our team in jeopardy, but also your career in jeopardy. He said, I'd be remiss because I wouldn't be thinking about your wife. I wouldn't be thinking about your children if I continue to let you do that. So Coach Tomlin knows how to handle us in ways to let us be individuals, but also ways to make the organization grow, the team be better, and let us grow as people. He's a leader of men, and they know that. That's why he was hired. It wasn't about the Rooney Rule. It's because he went in there with his notebooks, with his personality, and impressed the Rooneys and said, hey, I can lead this team to championships. I can be the next great coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And all that he has done to this point shows that.